Good morning, greetings, welcome creators. We are here. We are on Reclaiming Royalty module. And this week together, we are going to be diving into everything related to self-belief, to self-trust, to really reclaiming our own inner authority and sovereignty and personal power. And so I'm going to take you through some processes related to this around comparisonitis, around imposter syndrome. And essentially what we want to do is we want to look at anywhere where we are outsourcing our power, or where we are not trusting in our own authority, right? And our own inner wisdom and inner intelligence to be able to guide us and direct us. And this is so important because no amount of talent or creativity or strategy is going to be able to help you, show up and continue to take action towards your goals and your dreams if the self-belief part is not anchored in, right? And so this is what is going to enable us to, take action, to continue taking inspired action, and to do so from a place where we really believe in ourselves and we really feel really anchored into our own sense of self, right? So this is where we get to really kind of break through stuff around the inner critic and any stories that we might have around not being good enough, not being enough, right? And it's really about taking full ownership of our lives. So let's start with inner authority, right? We're going to cover so much in this module, right? We're going to talk about boundaries. We're going to talk about instincts. We're going to talk about, just like reclaiming our story. We're going to talk about cultivating that inner trust, okay? So from the moment that we are born, we are bombarded with opinions and expectations and judgments and externalized voices that tell us what we should do and how we should act and how we should behave and what's acceptable and what's cool, what's in trend, what's not, what's how we should be expressing ourselves, what pathways and choices and decisions and actions we should be taking in our life, right? And it takes a lot of courage to be able to go against the grain of society, to go against the grain of, what your family or your friends or your culture expect you to do, what you should be doing with your life. It takes a lot of courage to be able to actually listen to your own inner voice and trust it enough to be able to follow through and take action, right? Even when, or especially when we hit roadblocks or, doubts or fears or criticism comes up, and it will come up, right? And so if we allow our sense of self to be determined by these external opinions, right, or these external judgments, or if you allow yourself to be defined by what others say about you or what they, their opinion of you, we're going to find ourselves constantly in a pattern of molding ourselves to try to fit other people's expectations, right, of who they think we should be. And we're constantly going to be trying to be pleasing others, right? And at the same time, denying our own self, denying our own true expression and our own true being, right? Our purpose of why we're here in this world. And so, yeah, it's also, if we are defining ourselves by what other people think of us, we are always going to be trying to fit the mold, right? And it's going to be very easy for us to get thrown off path by our first rejection, by our first criticism, our first knockback. We're going to start to doubt everything that we're doing, right? And so, yeah, cultivating inner authority and learning how to self-source our own sense of validation is what is going to allow us to be so anchored in to our own sense of self that we're solid, right? That we can back ourselves, that we have, that we'll be able to face adversity without throwing in the towel. You know, we're going to be able to hit those rejections and still have the resilience and the self-belief enough to get up and keep going, right? And to try again. And really what reclaiming royalty is about is actually just like reclaiming your life and reclaiming the power that you have to be the king or the queen of your own life. Like, you get to say what happens in your reality and your experience. Okay, like this is your life. It's your choice. These are your decisions. It's like your pathway to choose, right? There's one precious life that you have. Like, it's between you and your creator. It's you and your soul contract with the universe. It's got nothing to do with your mum or your dad or your teacher or your partner or what the cat down the road thinks that you should be doing with your life, right? This is your one precious life. And when we prioritize other people's opinions or judgments or feelings, when we prioritize other people, and I'm not saying that we just be completely selfish and disregard others, but if we are in some way going against the grain of what feels true and what feels aligned for us in order to please others, right? We're going to be very fragile and very easily thrown off balance, okay? So, yeah, in order for us to really feel confident and to, you know, claim our power like this, it has to be right for us. We have to be able to listen to that inner voice and trust it. And nobody else's authority is more important than your own, right? Nobody else's authority is more correct than your own. You are the boss of you. You are the master of your own experience. Nobody knows what you've been through more than you. Nobody can be an authority on the inner workings and the inner experience of your mind and your self, your heart, than you, right? And so the quicker we can anchor in this truth, and the quicker that we can start to create this certainty and this clarity and this sense of trust within, right, the faster things will be able to manifest. And, you know, the universe responds to energy that is certain, that is solid, that is unshakable and unfuckable with, right? It's this inner conviction. And so self-sovereignty is really about taking full responsibility for your life. Full responsibility, 100%, right? And this doesn't mean that you're to blame for all the bad things that have happened, or that, you know, you've somehow attracted all the bad things, or that you're, you know, it doesn't mean that it's your fault. But it does mean that you are able to respond. Ability to respond, right? That's what self-sovereignty is. So if we accept that we are the creator of our lives, we're now responsible for creating our experience, right? And so that means that we are responsible for our healing. We are responsible for how we show up. We are responsible for how we choose our thoughts and our beliefs and our experiences and how we act on them, how we behave as a result of that, right? We are responsible for the results that we're getting in our life. And we're also responsible for the things that we're not getting as well, right? And so yeah, when we come to this point, like coming to this point of claiming ownership and claiming our power like this, it means that we also have to stop arguing for our limitations. Like stop arguing and stop reiterating all the reasons why it's not working, right? And stop outsourcing all the reasons why it's not working. Like if you argue long enough for your limitations, you get to keep them. You don't win anything, right? And so what I mean by that is like all the reasons why it's not happening. It's like, okay, maybe we've got some stories about the industry being fucked, or, you know, there's certain stories around, you know, money. Artists don't make a lot of money. You can't make money from your art. Maybe there's, you know, stories around money that's going on. Maybe there's stories around relationships, like there's no good men out there, or men are liars, or they're all assholes, or, you know, maybe you've got some stories going on about men or women in your relationships, or, you know, it's like maybe there's a certain situation that happened in your business, right? And it's like a certain partnership in your business, or you know, something that's not working, right? So taking ownership of our lives, I mean, we have to take ownership of these stories, and we have to work out, where are we outsourcing and where are we making this someone else's fault or someone else's problem? And, you know, it's like, we might have all these stories about not having the right circumstance, or not having the right situation, or, you know, this happened or that happened. And it's like, whatever has happened has happened. Whatever has happened, it's happened. We can't change what has happened. We can't change the past. We cannot go back in time. I mean, we can, but, you know, not physically. We can physically not go back in time, right? We might be able to do that in our memory. We can do that in, you know, all kinds of consciousness processes, where we can go back and kind of reframe the past. We can reframe the way that we feel about the past, or the way we perceive it, but we can't actually change, like we can't rewind the clock and redo the situation, right? And so what we can change is our ability to respond. We can change our ability to carry that experience, and like what we're going to choose to make that mean, right, in this next chapter, and how we're going to move forward from it. And so this part of claiming our authority means we also have to recognize that nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is coming to save you. And this is a message that I would love to have shared with both my past, present, and future self. Nobody is coming to save you. You have to be your own hero in this life, right? You have to be your own hero. And so, you know, essentially what we want to do to start is we want to look at, where are we outsourcing our power? Where are we allowing ourselves to get stopped or blocked? And yeah, where are we allowing ourselves to get pulled off the path, or not taking full responsibility for our lives, or expecting someone else to take responsibility? And yeah, where are we allowing externally other people to have a say, or to dominate, or to control either our sense of self, or, you know, our sense of direction? And so there's a few journal questions that I've put in there for you to start on this module. And it's like, okay, what reasons do you have in your life about not already having the thing that you want? Whatever that is, whatever area of life that is. You can do this for multiple areas. Okay, so what are your reasons? Like, get out your victim story, get out all the reasons why you feel it's not happening or it's not working, right? And then I want you to also like dig into, where are you currently outsourcing your power? Okay, so who or what have you been making responsible for your situation, or for your circumstance, for your life, for this particular issue or block? Who are you making responsible for that? Okay, it might be a partner, it might be a working relationship, it might be your business partnership, it might be the people that you in your community. You might be making a government organization responsible for not giving you funding, or for you not getting the grant that you wanted. Or maybe you're making the industry responsible for you not being able to achieve your goals or not get the level of success that you want. Maybe you're making society responsible for your lack in a certain area. Okay, so where are you outsourcing your power? And we want to tune into this, because any area of life that you are not empowering, somebody will overpower you, right? Any area of life that you are not empowering within yourself, somebody else will overpower within you. Okay, so what we want to do, once you've got these statements out, we want to start to take ownership of them. We want to turn them into I statements, right? So some examples of that is like, okay, if there's a statement around, my parents never supported me, and it made me develop self-esteem issues, right? My parents never supported my artistry, and therefore I developed issues with like valuing myself and my craft and what I do. We want to turn that statement into an I statement. So for example, I am making my parents responsible for my low self-esteem, or I have low self-esteem, right? Do you feel the difference, like the shift in just creating that statement and taking it as an I, right? We immediately have our power back, because if I'm responsible for my self-esteem as opposed to my parents, right, I can do something about that. I can't control what my parents do. I can't control what anybody else does outside of me, right? So the power is in I, but it's confronting, because once again, it means that we are responsible. So another example is, if there's a story that comes up for you in this process around, like, my band members or, my business partner is so unreliable. They don't contribute. They don't seem to care. Turning this into an I statement is, I am attracting, or I am choosing to work with people who are not aligned with my vision. I chose to work with people who are not aligned with my creative vision, because if they were, they would be committed and they would be dedicated and they would be showing up for you, right? So it's like, there are millions of billions and squillions of people on this planet. If you are having the experience constantly of people not engaging in your work, it's likely that it perhaps has something to do with the people that you're choosing, and perhaps with something to do with, like the energy that you're putting into it as well. Okay, so again, we're just wanting to take responsibility with this I statement, so that we actually have our power to change. We have the power to choose something different if we recognize it. So another example of this is like, if you've got a story going on around, okay, like the industry's fucked, it's just so hard to break through, it's so hard to build an online following. Take our power back. So, I need to learn more about the industry. I need to develop my online marketing skills. I need to learn more about how this works, right? I need to develop more connections or networks in the industry. We want to take our power back just simply by using I statements and centering ourselves in the power position, okay? And So the other questions in here for you to journal is like, are you secretly wishing that someone will just swoop in and save you, right? And if so, what are you hoping that they will do? So if there's a part of you that's kind of like surrendering your authority and just hoping that someone else will come in and make the decisions and put you on the right path, what is it that you're actually missing that you're hoping this external person will provide? And I feel like this is a big one for creators, because there is this illusion or this myth within our industry around getting discovered, right? That, you know, you're this great talented artist and then suddenly you just get discovered and you have overnight success, right? And our industry doesn't really work like that anymore in this new age, right? So I'm inviting you to dig into that, and just also like, let's start to uncover any stories that you might have around your own authority. Do you trust in your own sense of authority? Do you believe in yourself? Like when something feels right for you, it doesn't feel right for you. Are you able to trust your own sense of authority? Or do you have any stories that might be coming up that have maybe led to you not believing in yourself, or not having full conviction, or not having full confidence in your own ability? So we want to start to flesh out some of these stories. We want to start to bring them to the surface, okay? And as we can start to tune into this journey of sovereignty, and we can start to listen to this inner voice a little bit more, it allows us to just let go of some of the noise, some of the externalized noise, and just allow the inner voice to start to become a little bit more amplified and become stronger in this process, all right? So successful people believe in their worth. They believe in themselves, right? They are so anchored in and tethered to their own sense of truth, that they don't need to divert their energy into people pleasing or getting attention, or, you know, they're not going to be easily swayed by negative influences or critique from other people, right? And they're not going to be thrown off by obstacles or, you know, challenges that pop up along the way, right? They're able to follow through with those intentions regardless of whatever comes up on the path. And self-belief is, it's like what we talked about in the manifestation module. It's like being able to act as if, even when you don't see any evidence that what you're working towards or what you're manifesting is coming, or that it's there. It's like believing in yourself also means believing in the universe, believing in creator, believing in God, believing in the divine unfolding, believing that everything is unfolding and working in your favor, right? So it's not just a belief in self on an ego sense. True self-belief really is a belief in the universe, and also, it's like being in that batshit crazy energy, acting as if. It's like, even when there's no physical evidence, even when, you know, things haven't actually happened yet, and it looks like maybe on the surface it looks like nothing is changed, it's still being able to show up, and still being able to take the action, and still being able to follow through, and still being able to act as if it's all going to plan, okay? And sometimes when we are on these big journeys and we're doing all this inner work and healing and growth, and we are expanding our edges and limits, and, you know, like in a container like this that we've been journeying through, it's like we might not see the external shift straight away, right? The people around us probably won't even perceive us any differently yet. But yet on the inside, there's so much moving and reorganizing and getting shifted about. And it's why it's so important to do that in groups like this, right? Where you have full permission to just show up in this new energy and show up in this different way. And choose something different, right? And it's like, it's going to take time for the external pieces of the world to start to align with this new vibration. And I want to talk a little bit about instinctual intelligence, okay? Because this has got a lot to do with self-belief. It's the piece around listening to our inner voice, like being able to hear the sound of your inner voice louder than the sound of the world around you. Okay, so our instinctual intelligence it's our internal guidance system, right? And regardless of whether you listen to it or not, it's there. It is there. It is the primal, animalistic, this deep, primal, instinctual part of us that it's always guiding, it's always directing, it's always giving us signs, it's always giving us feedback and signals about our truth, right? And it's telling you what feels aligned and what doesn't feel aligned in every single moment. And often when we're not listening to this part of us, it gets louder and it gets louder and it gets louder until it screams, right? And what that might look like disease, that might look like breakdown, that might look like emotional overwhelm, that might look like getting sick, right? It's like our body is the way in which our instinctual intelligence is the vessel through which that intelligence speaks to us, okay? So this intelligence lives in our gut, in our womb, in our pelvis, in our sex. It is our animal body, and it's this pure sensory, instinctual awareness that exists beyond intellect, right? It's beyond the linear, rational functioning of our mental mind. And it's like, you've definitely experienced this, right? Like if you've had somebody cross your boundaries, if you've had someone come up into your personal space uninvited, if you've ever been in an environment where you haven't felt safe, right? And your logical brain doesn't necessarily know why, or it can't rationalize it, right? But it's this deep inner knowing. It's a vibe, it's a vibration, and it's this like, it's like when the hairs on your body just stand up on end, or you just meet someone and straight away you sense that there's not a good vibe, right? Or you don't feel comfortable and you don't always like understand why. And what we do as humans is we often will be in a situation where we have a vibe and we have an instinct and we have this deep knowing that something's not right for us or it doesn't feel right. And our brain will try to rationalize it and make it okay. We'll try to talk ourselves into believing something that we don't on a deep, deep instinctual level. We will try to make things work, even when this wise, intelligent part of us is telling you that it doesn't, okay? And if you ever witness animals in the wild, right? Or, even animals like, cats, for example, are incredible at this. Animals that have maintained a part of their instinctual nature, you'll notice that there is almost like a radius of space, like an energetic radius of space that around their physical bodies, where they can sense and they can feel things before they actually actually happen, right? This is like your energy body. It's an extension, around your physical self. And humans have this too. Like we do have these extrasensory capacities as well. But these like layers of your energy body, it's almost like an extension of your nervous system, right? And when things happen externally to us, they register internally as a physical sensation, right? And there is an incredible amount of life force and energy and deep, deep wisdom that comes from an embodied level, from this place that's available to us, right? But most of us are very disconnected from our body, from our sensations, from our feelings. We've stopped listening to the signals and the signs of our body. And yeah, as I said, like we are getting so many signs all the time. Your body is constantly informing you and giving you the intelligence to tell you when something is right, when something doesn't feel right, when you can trust something, when you should not be trusting something. So yeah, remember back in the beginning of our journey, we talked about Eros and Thanatos, okay? Expansion and contraction. So it's like, yeah, when you're doing something that feels in alignment and it feels right and it feels good, there's a natural expansion, there's a joy, there's a lightness, there's an energy that, you're energized, you're vibrant, you feel excited, right? And on the flip side, when something doesn't feel right for you, there's a contraction, there's a shrinking, you kind of come into yourself, there's a kind of a squashing of the energy, you might be feeling like a really low vibe. You all have this, right? And these are the signals. This is the intelligence, right? So I'm going to encourage you this week to start to tune into this, tune into the subtle sensations, the energy in your body, in your system. Start to notice what it's telling you, and don't rationalize it, but notice, like even when you're just one-on-one with someone, when you're performing or when you're teaching, or maybe you're just having a business meeting, like start to become curious of your internal sensations and what's happening within you, as much as you are around the person, right? Or the other energy in front of you. So practice tracking your own energy and practice being able to stay anchored to yourself in your body while you're connecting with others, because this is where the trust comes in. This is where the belief in self gets locked in, right? And notice anytime that you start getting drawn into people-pleasing behavior. Notice anytime when you kind of get pulled out of connection with yourself and you maybe go into an energy of catering to the other person's needs, right? So yeah, every cell in your body is communicating to you at all times. And the biggest part of trusting ourselves and cultivating self-belief is really about being able to listen to ourselves and being able to hear the guidance, right? And so as Dr. John Demartini says, a genius is someone who listens to the guidance of their own soul and obeys, right? Obeys. So honoring our word and honoring, like having the discipline to be able to follow through things and do the things that you say you're going to do, right? It's accountability. That's what accountability is, doing the things that you say you're going to do. So the more frequently that we keep our agreements with ourselves, the more we strengthen our sense of inner trust and inner respect, right? So think about this, like if you had a friend that bailed on you every single time you made an appointment, like every single time you made a time to catch up and hang out, would you trust them? Like, would you actually believe them? Yeah. So, you know, there's a saying that says, like, never prioritize someone who makes you an option, right? And yet so many of us, like, how many of us aren't actually prioritizing ourselves? How many of us don't actually honor our own commitments or honor our own words to ourselves when we say we're going to do something? Like, how many of us blatantly just lie to ourselves over and over and over again and wonder why we don't believe in ourselves, right? So this is what self-respect is. Self-respect is actually accountability and doing what you say you're going to do. And that's how you cultivate self-belief, right? It's like every time you dishonor your word, every time you lack accountability in your actions, you lose trust in yourself. And every single time, you know, when you say, it's like, I'm going to give up smoking tomorrow, I'm going to start practicing, you know, I'm going to do 10 hours of practice a week, I'm going to be rehearsing my set every single day, right? I'm going to be putting the, you know, putting those business plans together. I'm going to be hitting the gym 3 times a week, or, you know, like whatever it is, those goals that you've set for yourself, like, you need to mean what you say and say what you mean and just follow through, right? And this is how we cultivate unfuckable self-respect and discipline and self-belief and trust, right? And so one of the things around this that we need to talk about, that I want to touch on just briefly here, is boundaries. Okay, so often one of the biggest reasons why people do not follow through with their word or honor their word or are not accountable is because often they set goals that are like massively way too big, or that feel unachievable or unattainable or out of reach, right? So the first thing around boundaries is like, build a bridge, right? Set goals that are achievable, that are attainable. So you don't put yourself in an overwhelming position and then you can't live up to it, and then you fail and then you feel guilty and then you don't show up, right? Because you said you would and then you didn't, and then you lost your momentum, and right? So the first part of this is like, okay, create a container around what your capacity is, right? If you have the capacity to practice for 10 minutes a day, awesome, practice for 10 minutes a day, but don't set yourself a target of doing 4 hours practice a day and then not actually be able to show up for that and then feel like you're creating this cycle. It's a cycle, guys. So what we want to do again is we want to aim for progress. We want to just set small, achievable targets, even if that is 10 minutes a day, even if that is like something that feels like, okay, it's not your big goal, but it's a bridge. We have to build a bridge from where we are to where we want to be. Okay, so it's not about limiting yourself. It's actually an act of kindness and an act of self-love to encourage your growth and to set small, small goals so that you can move with your own pace and develop momentum from where you're at. So again, it's like, you know, you don't go into a gym for the first time and pick up 100 kilograms and expect to just start like pumping 100 kilograms, right? Like, you're going to put yourself in a situation where you damage your muscles, you hurt yourself, you put your back out, and then you've lost all momentum because you can't show up and you can't go, right? So we just got to start with the 4K weights or the 10K weights. We just have to start small and slowly, progressively increase it, right? It's about progress. So another thing that I want to touch on with boundaries is that if you, I'm just going to have a sip of magic. If you have grown up in an environment, or you have had a lifetime of having your boundaries compromised, and so what I mean by that is, saying yes to people when actually you just want to say no, right? Having a blurry sense of self and other, okay? It might look like justifying other people's abusive behavior, or even just being like having a need for external approval, or it's like a trauma response, right? Like a fawning kind of response where it's like it's almost like overly compassionate, overly attuned to the needs of others, always caring for others. And it's great to care about others and to be attuned and compassionate for other people's needs. But I'm talking about in this sense when it is at the expense of your own, right? When you've stopped listening to your others and you're very focused on other people's needs, right? We need to look at where your boundaries have been compromised and how we can recover them, right? So when we have overridden our boundaries for so long, when we have repressed or denied our true feelings about things for so long, and even like when we've tried to, if we're in a certain situation and we've been trying to mentally rationalize it and analyze it and make sense of it, and for an extended period of time, we've kind of told ourselves the story, but it's not actually lining up with the experience that we're having and that wisdom that we're feeling on an embodied level. It's natural that we're going to develop a sense of mistrust, right? We're going to mistrust our judgment, mistrust our ability to discern, okay? And we're also going to feel unprotected by our own lack of containment, right? So, what we want to do, this second part, like the second lot of journal questions for this module, is to get you to tune into, okay, what are some past boundaries that we need to recover? So experiences where you maybe have felt your boundaries were crossed. And also, like, how do you feel about saying no to yourself and to others? Like, can you actually say no? Yeah. And how do you feel about that? What comes up for you in the process of just saying no thanks, right? Because the more and more we tune into our sense of trust, the easier it becomes for us to make choices and decisions, right? And, can you rely on yourself? Are you someone who is reliable for yourself, right? Not for others. You might be someone who's like super reliable and attentive to others, but can you rely on yourself? Do you have your own back? Can you hold yourself accountable? And can you show up for things even when nobody is watching, right? Are you holding yourself to the same level of accountability to which you would hold a client, to which you would hold your partner or a child? Are you able to apply that same level of discipline within yourself? Okay. So, all right. There's a lot today, guys. There's a lot. So what I want to do now is I want to take you through 2 different processes. Okay. These are in your workbook. So you can go through these at your own pace, but I'm going to break them down for you. And both of these processes are designed to help you recover a sense of trust and self-belief, all the things that we've been talking about. So the first thing that I want to take you through is a process for transforming imposter syndrome, okay? Imposter syndrome is like just a huge thing that pulls us off path and gets us all muddled around our sense of self and our belief in self, okay? So imposter syndrome, if you're not familiar with that phrase, imposter syndrome is the feeling like you don't belong, or the feeling that you don't deserve to be where you are. So it might be like the position that you're in, or the opportunity that you've been given. So it's like feeling that you're an imposter in your own life and that you're not good enough. And it's almost, yeah, it's like you don't deserve to be in the position, you know, that you're in. And no matter how much you achieve, how much you accomplish, the feeling is still there, right? And it also kind of comes with this energy of like feeling like a complete fraud, and that at any moment it's going to be discovered and everyone's going to find out, and yeah, and you're going to be exposed, right? So I know that most of you have probably had this feeling before, okay? Because research shows us that around 70% of people suffer from imposter syndrome, and it mostly tends to hit women and social minorities the most, right? And yeah, it can cause us to like downplay our abilities. It can cause us to just like miss out on incredible opportunities where we don't put ourselves forward. We don't even try, like we don't even put our hat in the ring, right? And there's a lot of reasons for this. Like there's a lot of reasons why this happens. And, you know, one of the biggest reasons is lack of representation, right? As women or social minorities, we don't see ourselves represented as frequently in those positions of power, or we don't see, you know, ourselves represented in the things that we're aspiring to. It just doesn't seem accessible to us or possible for us in that way. Like it's hard for us to be what we can't see, okay? And often what happens is it can kind of cultivate this unconscious belief or story within us around like people like us can't do that, yeah, or yeah, like people like us don't do those things, or like people like us don't belong in those positions, right? And so the first thing, if this is you, if you've experienced this in some way, the first thing that I encourage you to look at in this perception is how many people in the world who are in positions of power, who are in the spotlight, who are achieving those high levels of success, feel like they belong, who actually don't. Know what I mean? Like, there are people who are way less qualified than you. There are people who have way less experience and way less talent and way less compassion or way less purpose, who are in enormous positions of power, you know, who are boldly putting themselves out there and calling the shots and taking up space, and they are nowhere near as accredited to do so as you are, right? So why the fuck not you? Like, why them? Why, what gives them the audacity to think that they belong, right? So I'm just having like, first example that comes to mind for the Australians on the call is like Tony Abbott, who was like a leader of the women. I can't remember his exact title, but he was like the Minister of Women and the Minister for Indigenous Affairs, right? He's a white man. He has neither experience, lived experience, or is properly adequately accredited to be taking up space in either of those positions, right? So if someone like that can boldly put themselves forward and have enough audacity to think that they are the most qualified people to represent, right, women or Indigenous peoples, why the fuck not you, right? So another factor is that, you know, we intimately know ourselves from the inside, right? So we know ourselves internally. We know all of our doubts, we know all of our fears, we know all of our insecurities, we know all of our personal shortcomings, and you know, our perception of what we receive from others is what they choose to show us, right? Or, what we see, we see snippets of people's lives externally on social media, or how they're choosing to present themselves to the world, right? You see all the inspirational memes and the quotes and the holidays and the highlights of this grand life, but we don't, it can be hard for us to kind of imagine that successful people, or the people that we admire or aspire to, may also have their own shortcomings and may also have their own insecurities or doubts and fears, right, that come up. And so, like, I guarantee you from the bottom of my heart that other people are just as fucked up as you are, right? Not saying that you're fucked up, you're wonderful, but we can tend to pedestal others. And the truth is that everyone, like, seriously, as a coach, as a counselor, as an artist, I've worked in so many different communities and so many individuals. And I just know that even at all levels of the game, right? I've coached people who have been way more successful than I have in the music industry. And yet there's still the same kind of mental caps or beliefs or limits that come up, the same kind of insecurities. It's like, what's that saying? Like new levels, different devils. New levels, different devils. There's always going to be another layer, right, for us to work through. And so, yeah. And so this is what we want to try to take all this into account, right, when we're looking at imposter syndrome. And I'm going to take you through, okay, so 5 steps now, 5-step process. This is in your book. You can go through this, how we deal with imposter syndrome. So step number 1 is admit it. Admit it. Just be totally honest about it. Be totally real and vulnerable, and just let yourself express and admit it, and share the feeling, like share with someone that you trust. You can even share in this group, right? Share with someone that you feel safe talking to. And yeah, like, what you resist persists, right? So if you just deny it, or you pretend like, yeah, I'm cool, it's good, doesn't matter. Don't try to hide it or repress it or deny it. Just allow yourself, like, to be humble and admit it. And don't flip the other polarity and become an egotistical, just become an egotistical person either, and pretend that you're a know-it-all. Be humble, admit it. Like, it's 100% okay to not know everything, right? So number 1, admit it. Number 2, try not to freeze. Try not to freeze or collapse into a thing of like, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to be good enough. Just try to see the situation as an opportunity for growth. So do a bit of a reflection. It's like, question your skills, question your capacity, question your ability, and notice, like, are there any legitimate gaps here in your skill base? Like, is there an area of your knowledge that perhaps needs to expand or needs to be developed? Or, like, how could you improve? Like, how could you use this situation to improve? Is it revealing to you an area where you need to develop your craft or hone your skills a little bit more? So yeah, okay. So number 2, identify, the opportunity for growth in the situation. Number 3, take inventory of all your past successes and achievements. Okay, so no matter how big or how small, this is really important. All right, so most artists, as myself included, so many of the creators that I work with and coach, have complete amnesia at times about all the wonderful things that they've done, all the incredible projects and all the successes that they've had. And it's almost like, often we kind of live project to project, or often we can even have like multiple projects running. We can be kind of doing this and this and this, and we can have all these kind of like our finger in all these different little pockets. And sometimes we just forget to acknowledge and recognize all the incredible things that we do, right? So the third step is take stock of all the things, like write down all the wonderful lists and things, like remind yourself that you're actually incredible and you're super capable and you've done so much stuff, right? Go update your resume. Go update your resume. That is like one of the best ways to look back and be like, oh wow, I did this degree and I did that project and I did this job and I worked for them, and you've probably done so many things that you've forgotten about. Okay, so that's step number 3. Step number 4, we want to remind yourself of all the ways in which you have been able to help others by doing your thing. Okay, so all the ways in which you have been of service, all the ways in which what you are doing, whatever it is that you're doing, has actually helped and supported other people, right? And this is important because sometimes we never actually know the level of impact that what we're doing is having in the world. Sometimes, we think like it does, we think it doesn't matter, or people are not noticing. And sometimes you just never actually grasp the concept of how much your presence is making a difference. So this like throws me back. I remember like a year, I know what I mean now, it's like 2 years ago now. 2 years ago, I was living in Melbourne and I had a 9-piece band. We were performing quite regularly. We played at this, your Melbourne people will know this, a venue called the Nightcat in Fitzroy. And we performed there quite regularly on the Saturday nights. And I remember Saturday night, I'm preparing to go on stage. It's like midnight, we're getting ready, we're doing like the night shift in the club. I'm standing side of stage and I'm about to walk on stage, waiting for my band are just setting up. And this man walks up to me. I had never seen this man before. He walked up to me, he introduced himself to me, and he said, Katimoni, I came to your show here at this exact location exactly 1 year ago, and I bought your CD. It was called I Can, the single that I released, I Can. And he said, I bought your CD a year ago, and at the time I was going through a divorce and I was experiencing a massive depression in my life, and I felt like my world had fallen apart. And I'm getting emotional just talking about this. And he said to me, I bought your CD that night, and I wanted to let you know that I played that CD almost every single day. I listened to that song, I Can. And sometimes it was the only thing that would get me up out of bed, out of my depression, and get me into my day. And he's like, I just wanted to come to your show today and let you know the impact that made in my life. And I'm feeling emotional because it's like, we don't know. Often as creators, we create something that is so deep and it's from our heart, and we put it out there in the world and we don't always know how it's going to land. And we might even feel like, are people even going to get this? Are they going to understand it? Sometimes it's just about our own healing that we put things out there. And when we receive feedback like this, it's a real affirmation to us that we're on path, that we're doing the right thing, that we really are in alignment with our higher purpose. And so step 4, take some time to really take stock of all those moments, all the comments that you've received, you know, when you've released something. Like, go back and write them down, like collect a little file, which is what we're going to do next. But like, you know, thank you notes, testimonials from clients, anytime you've maybe done a workshop. Like, I always reach out to the organization that I do a workshop with and I ask for a testimonial. I ask for feedback. Reviews, you know, if you've had any reviews in the media from your shows or your releases or your exhibitions or launches. Yeah, comments, messages, anytime someone has just come and thanked you from the bottom of their heart or let you know how you doing your thing and you just showing up in the world and you being you has influenced them or impacted their life in some way. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're actually like attuning ourselves to value, to a sense of value, which we'll talk about more in another module. And then step number five is hype yourself. Okay, so this is the task for the week, is to create a hype file. All right, so your hype file is essentially you gathering together all the evidence, right? Remember, our brain needs evidence to change its wiring. Gather evidence, documentation, anything that you can get your hands on that affirms to your brain that you are credible, that you are capable, that you have more than enough expertise in your chosen field, right? And not only that, that you're just a total badass king or queen of your own world, and the universe is actually just a better place for you showing up and being you. Okay, so these are things like all your list of achievements, all your successes, all the courses and programs you've done. Put all your certificates in there. Any compliments, love, support, messages of encouragement that you've received. Like, who have been some of the main people who have nurtured and supported you on your journey? Write them down. Memories of people who have really believed in you. You know, things, memories or comments or messages from fans, from your family, from friends, from your community, from parents, from colleagues, teachers, random people at the bar who just keep coming back to your gigs, like, you know, or keep coming back to support you. Like, sometimes some of your biggest supporters are people that you don't even know, right? They always say you're never a prophet in your hometown, right? It's like often the people who are removed from you that actually really see your greatness and admire it and support it the most. So yeah, testimonials, feedback from venues, from industry peers, from clients, from organizations you've worked with, anything can be formal, can be informal. We're going to put it together in a hype file. Okay, so this is basically what we're doing is we're being our own cheerleader. And any single time that you start doubting yourself, or you start getting pulled off track, or you get stuck in judgments or fears or whatever, this is your anchor point. This is your anchor point to return to over and over again. And any time that you start doubting your own capacity and ability, you are going to pull out your hype file and you're going to hype the shit out of yourself, okay? And remember that you are an absolute badass. The second process that I want to take you through today is a process for comparisonitis. So this is another huge thing that blocks our sense of self-belief. We can kind of, you know, want to put ourselves out there and then we start judging ourselves. Because that's what comparisonitis is, really. It's like you're judging yourself by comparing yourself to another. And yeah, it's something that can really stop us from being visible, can really stop us from sharing our gifts with the world. And it's kind of like, can you just imagine like these beautiful frangipanis? Can you imagine this frangipani in all of its luscious, glorious beauty, looking at a hibiscus flower and just being like, I'm not going to bloom because that hibiscus flower over there is just so beautiful and so wonderful and glorious. And so I'm just not going to bloom. Like, how ridiculous is that, right? Like, every part of nature, like, you have a right to bloom. You have a right to shine. Like, you are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. You have a right to take up space. You have a right to bloom. And there is no limit. Like, there's allowed to be more than one beautiful flower. Like, there's more than one star in the sky. Can you imagine how boring the sky would be with one star in it, right? And yet this is like exactly what we do as humans. Like, we compare ourselves to others and we limit our own ability to show up and shine and take up space because there's also someone else that is doing the same thing, right? And, you know, we can kind of go like, oh, she just signed that record deal, or she just, like, you know, has the perfect life, or, you know, he has the perfect body, or, you know, he's like kicking goals in the industry. He just did an interview in that big magazine, or the radio's like really playing their music at the moment. Or we can kind of shrink ourselves because we see others achieving the things that we want, and we make it mean things about our own ability and capacity. We compare ourselves like we are our biggest critics. But here's the thing. When you are locked on to your own sacred assignment, when you are locked on to your own purpose, and you are so attuned with your own destiny and your own pathway, no one, like, there is no competition to your highest you. Yeah, when you're on your own path, there's no competition. No one can compete with you to be the best you, because you are the only you, right? And that is your only job. Your only job on this planet is to be the best possible you that you can be. And the rest, it's for them to be the best possible them that they can be, but nobody can be you. No one can match your unique transmission and your unique frequency in the world. And that's your only job. Your only job is to just bloom with the unique blueprint and imprint that you have been gifted with, right? This is an abundant universe. There is no shortage of gigs. There's no shortage of opportunities. There's no shortage of money. There is no shortage of lovers. There is no shortage of, you know, incredible people to work with and collaborate with and create with. Like, there is no shortage of record deals. There's no shortage of followers or, you know, media opportunities. Like, we live in abundance, and this is the mindset that we need to adopt, because comparisonitis is kind of like jealousy, and jealousy is kind of lack consciousness. It's kind of like fear that something will be taken from us, right? And so what we want to do in order to transform this, in order to shift this energy and to once again, like, reclaim our power, take back our power in this situation and lead from a place of sovereignty, is to actually thank that person. Thank the person who is triggering you, the person you are comparing yourself to, right? So identify who it is, right? And we want to alchemize this by thanking them, because they have actually revealed to you something that was on your heart that maybe you didn't know you wanted, right? So when somebody achieves something great and it triggers you, what is happening is that it's actually showing you a gap. it's showing you something that you desire that you're lacking. And it might be you didn't think it was possible for you. It might, I mean, there could be so many reasons why it's lacking, right? We can get to that. But the thing is, perhaps you didn't even know that you wanted that thing, right? Or perhaps you didn't even know that that was like something that you deeply craved and desired to experience in your life, okay? So what that person has done is they have showed you that it is possible. They have showed you that it's actually an option, that it's available, and there's no reason why you couldn't have that as well, right? And so there's a little letter in your workbook. I'm going to invite you to write a letter. This is like a thank you note, a cosmic thank you note to this person. And you can structure it and phrase it however it feels good for you. But essentially what we want to do is we want to acknowledge them. And we also want to claim this desire for ourselves as well. Okay. So it'll sound something like this. Dear such and such, I've just noticed that you have fill in the blank, right? You've just launched that book. Or you just had your first exhibition, or you just sold out your first program, or you just released that new album or started that new business, whatever it is, right? And I just wanted to congratulate and celebrate. So acknowledge them, actually acknowledge and congratulate, celebrate them for whatever it is that they've achieved. I just want to thank you for shining such a big light in the world. And I am so inspired by your fill in the blank here. What is it that you actually really admire or you're inspired by about this person? What have they lit up for you? So I am so inspired by your dedication. I am so inspired by your professionalism, the way that you consistently show up and put yourself out there in the world. I'm so inspired by the way that you are producing such high quality work. What is it? I'm so, thanks for showing up and being such a badass. Thanks for being such a bold, strong woman. Thanks for showing up and, just really claiming your brilliance. Thanks for, audaciously representing, our community or our culture or, this message in the world. What is it, right? What is it that you really admire, you really respect about that person, right? Because once again, it's revealing to you the quality that you desire. And then we want to also claim your part here. So in the letter, we want to say, I am also about to release my first album. I am also putting out a new coaching program. I am also, putting together an exhibition. I am also applying for a grant. I'm also about to go on tour. What is the thing, right? I'm also doing this, and I really appreciate the way that you have been so fill in the blank here. I appreciate the way that you've been so bold in your marketing. I appreciate the way that you are so unapologetic in your self-expression. I appreciate the way that you really support others in your work. I appreciate the way that you really show up in your full self. What is it? What is it? The quality that you really feel has contributed to that success. And I just want to thank you for showing me that this is possible. And I really wish you all the best with it. Okay? With love, Katimoni. Or sign your name, right? You don't have to send this to them. If you do send this to them, awesome. I've done this process several times. And I've actually gotten beautiful responses from the people that I've sent this to, and, built a relationship and established a relationship and a connection with these people as a result of doing this process, right? And I promise you that this is just going to help alchemize any of those feelings of lack or doubt or, just like belief that you can't do it, right? Because you can do it. And so I feel like this is a lot, right? So you've got the hype file, you know, the task with the overcoming imposter syndrome to go through. You've got some journal questions in here, and I've also, yeah, encouraged you to write this cosmic thank you note too, so we can just start to, yeah, reclaim your power and alchemize any of those niggling doubts or fears or ideas that you're not good enough, and start to reclaim our own sense of authority and sovereignty in taking full responsibility for our lives here. And yeah, that's so much. I love you all. I really look forward to going through this with you all in our masterclass this week. And yeah, have a beautiful week, creators. Stay in the magic. Blessings.